got ourselves Rosagos. Rosagos gonna be first up with a quick root onto Chicago as they're charging in. Gonna be a big deep breath by the Invoker in the opener. Got himself a big shatter into full mastery burst. That's gonna be a big breath on Chicago. I think trying to see if he can dodge it. Does end up walling it off with a big disintegrate for Rosagos. Got himself a wall to make sure he cannot get interrupted. Living Flip to follow. Is that a lot of damage? Does get himself quite a bit of healing off of that one though. Disintegrate. Chicago trying to see if he can fight through the damage a little bit though. It's gonna be procs for Ross as they got himself a little bit more of the disintegrate output. Is going to go for a bit of a fire as there's going to be disintegrates coming down. Cannot get a can be interrupted. The Chicago going to go for a kick though. Could potentially be a situation where Rosa may need to go for a lot of healing. Does go in for the green Dragonflight spells. Quick sleep on Chicago. Potentially trinket. Does not trinket out of it. It is going to be Raptor stacking up the maelstrom for Chicago. Thunder onto Rosa. Does go in for a trinket very, very late. Big Ellen Plus does go in for quite a bit of healing. Needs himself a lot more recovery. Does get interrupted. Could be in a bad spot. Trying to go for as much recovery as they can. Disintegrates a backup onto Chicago. Trying to stay as aggressive as humanly possible. Is going to go for a little bit more healing, but a lightning last I think is going to stop in place. Does end up taking out Rosa goes. Well done, well done. With Sensei going to be up next. Ready to go as I really do like that night elf with that full bone. I forget what's it called. Bone something mod for the leather. Leg sweep onto Chicago as they did go for a knockback, and Sensei is going to be able to dip back in there very, very quickly. Trying to see if he can stay on top of Chicago as best possible. And Chicago is going to transform into a guardian spirit, or going to be guarded by spirit. Trying to see if he can push Sensei out. Is going to grip him away for a second. A Sensei taking quite a bit of damage. I think it's going to be Fist Fury, Karma, as well as a Ford Bruce. It looks like the fifth on team too. That's gonna join in. I think Too Broken was the last one we're waiting for, right? Karma, Chicago trying to see if he can wall this off. Needs to go for as much healing as he can. No more Maelstrom, no more mana. Doesn't really have much work with Sensei. Going in for Trinket. Big Fist of Fury. Chicago trying to see if he can go for Big Ellen Blast and Fall. It does not get to connect all that well though. With Big Fell gonna be up next. Trying to see if he can get over there with Sensei. Trying to see if he can potentially get around this ring of peace. Board by Sensei. Does he have another board back to go behind the pillar? Potentially. I don't know if he's got himself a good position. Trying to see if he can Fist of Fury down Big Fell. At least create some a bit of that CC, a bit of that survivability here with a parry in cap, but Big Fell does get disarmed for a second. Lexi but the Sensei, I don't think there's anything he can do anymore, and does end up taking him out as a good old orc would walk among us. Oh, that's an interesting choice. Dropping down a banner on Sensei. I feel like you're gonna end up making an enemy number one here with that one. Triples rushing in with a full army of the dead clawing up from under the ground. Big Karma immediately for Big Fell as to try to see if he can divert a lot of the damage back into Triples as they go. Oh, what was that? I'm sorry, what? What happened? The army of the dead came in. They're doing a bit of damage. Karma is up, and all of a sudden the monk just goes pop. What is going on right now? Even the gang is taking a lot of damage. Was that just like a Battle Master Trinket that fell off? Did he get like a really good Battle Master Trinket that was like his entire health bar? Trying to see if he can get around the gang. The gang could not really get himself a proper setup. Can't even get the gang together. He got a couple of imps, but I don't think it's going to be enough though. Full stun to follow. Gang might be in trouble. I think it's over. He's got himself Army of the Dead sacrificing the ghoul immediately. And that Mages of the Dead is going to walk in, get himself a big old swing, decapitated the Warlock right there where he stands. With Moose going to be up next, dampening super low right now with the game only being into like what 4 minutes into the match. It is still quite light right now, which gives every competitor here quite a lot of opportunity to self-heal, especially for the death rate, which are very much healing challenged. Gonna be a main one to chill pills as he does pre-AMS this one in case. I guess there's gonna be Moonfire, maybe Thorns on a Moose. Taking lots of damage from the pets though. It's gonna be chill pills dropping in very, very low, and so Hell's got himself Lynchborn in order to go for a little bit of that death coil healing. Trying to see if he can maximize some healing value for himself as best he can. Army that joins in, stun onto Moose, does go for the trinket, blind to follow, letting the pets coalesce around him. Trying to see if he can maybe get a good setup onto the Feral Druid. Wall up fall right now. Chilpas is gonna go for a bit of a death pack. He got himself a bit of borrowed health, but it's really borrowed time. Big damage on the booster. Does he turn it around? Big death call flying in. Barely able to recover. Chilpas super low in health as well. The army of the undead just keeps pummeling you. Trying to see if he can walk up from moves as best as he can. Doesn't have a lot of health to work with whatsoever. One more hit is all he needs. Oh, he does end up slaying them. But he's still bleeding. Trying to go for a bit of first aid. Doesn't get any recovery whatsoever. He needs healing. Does get himself one quick death strike out to Sed. who didn't go for the Shadow Ward Death immediately, does have the big dome for protection. Is going to be an IBF as well. Could go for a runic weapon in order to give himself a little bit more resources at the very least. Could go for a lot of death strikes at the worst. Interrupt someone's shadow with a silence to follow. At least try to see if we can deny set as much damage as possible. It is still going to be a lot of damage from the Shadow Priest. Shopos does have a mess come back up very, very soon. Needs to press it immediately. Does give himself a little bit of healing. I think Legibor maybe, or rather death strikes off of that Mindbender. Grippy Hand versus Sed, charging in with a main pet. I think might want to get himself full Army of the Dead here. It's going to be Grippy Hand stunned by the main pet with an A-bomb joined in, as well as the mages. At least can put some pressure on the Shadow Priest. Got himself dots on the pet. Chupos trying to see if he can swing around the corner. Dots have AMS for this one. Can pre-MS it. Immediate disperse for Sed. He knows he's going to be in a bad spot if he doesn't disperse right now. Army of the Dead chasing after him. He needs to find a way to remove him for a little bit here. AMS up for Chupos. Trying to go for an interrupt. Looks like a Shadow Ward Death might have actually took down Sed. I'm actually impressed. Chicago gonna be there for the team one already as Diamond trying to see if he can establish a bit of an opener. Got himself, he's looking like Chill Pills right now. He's actually stealing his look. Still his look 101. Got himself a full static totem. Chicago taking a lot of damage. It's gonna be a wall right now as Diamond trying to see if he can blast him out. Is gonna go for what look like a bit of an invis with a lasso. Got himself a bit of a blink. Does he have himself a big go? There's gonna be a lot of flurry. Full roots on Chicago. Does have some big laser spike. Oh, big damage. But looks like Chicago was able to catch up a lot of healing. Tried to go for an interrupt with a Diamond. Wasn't quite able to get himself a proper one going in. And that is going to be a full-on blown precognition for the Frosty Mage. Got himself a Ring of Fire. Again, getting interrupted and able to juke out Chicago every single time. I don't even know how you do it. But Chicago does end up giving the Mage basically immunity to CC, immunity to interrupts, as well as extra haste. This is going to be Glacier Spike. Does not get the big Nova with it. Mad damage to Diamond. Maybe in a little trouble. Is going to go for a little bit of an Ice Block. May want to remove that Alter Time in order to get a little bit more healing. Chicago was able to force out a lot out of the Frosty Mage. Hit him with the Elemental Blast immediately, as that is going to be spikes by Diamond right afterwards. That was a big Ascendance for Chicago. Random Ascendance procs too, so that actually ended up helping him out a lot. I don't even know how you ended up getting the static totem to work the way you did, but that was perfect grip for Diamond. Last to follow Blink right after is going to go for a bit of a breath. Got himself a few lances, trying to see if he can set up potentially maybe a big flirting proc. Is gonna just pummel down by the Shaman. Interrupted, did not get the juke out that time. Actually super low on health right now. If Chicago does close the gap, maybe goes in with a bit of a Storm Bolt or Storm Strike. That could be a lot of damage. I think could maybe end this right here. Trying to see if he can strip Diamond off of Wayne over the bus. Oh, big Alien Blast before the Alter Time can really go through. Might have actually been able to remove the Alter Time on top of it as well. But that is a Frost Mage going down. From a Frost Mage to the Frost Death, and right after the Silence of Chicago immediately utilize mobility to try to see if they can evade Shupos away from his burst. That is going to be knocked back, but the DK is unstoppable. He got himself plenty of movement mitigation. Either had himself a Death Advance, I think a Death Advance, but I think Pillar of Frost also potentially stops him from being knocked back, doesn't it? Pillar of Frost or IBF does it. Blind Chicago trying to see if he can play it a little bit defensively. Gripping Chicago away from any of the pets, but it looks like it's going to be a grip onto Chill Fist. It looks like he gets the feeling of what's it like to get gripped out in the open. Does end up bypassing the totem, trying to see if he can maybe capitalize some pressure to Chicago. Got himself yet another Pillar of Frost is ready. Also big defensive. Chicago kind of wants to see if he can walk Chill Pills out of his big old igloo, out of his dome, trying to see if he could go for bigger blitz, back-to-back stun in Chicago, and Chipos taking quite a bit of damage, could not get knocked back whatsoever. Lots of pressure in Chicago, who's going to wall off together with Guardian, lots of healing to follow, another stun by Chipos, but maybe looking potentially down the barrel of an Elemental Blast of Chicago, as he's just not doing all that good. IBF to tank up this damage as best as possible, does someone to go to sacrifice it, could potentially be a death break right here. If Chicago can maybe get himself a proc of Ascendance, it could be massive. Does go for the Sunder. Chupos with an AMS. Doing okay for now. Nova onto Chicago, or rather trying to see if he can root him down. Chupos does end up going for a death pack really early on, trying to give himself a little bit more health. This is where Chicago can push in and push the offensive. Blind by Chupos, trying to see if he can avoid Chicago as best as possible. Give himself a bit of a breather right now. Maybe we'll be able to give himself a little bit of recovery. It's going to be static totem. Doesn't quite catch Chupos, but it's going to be tricking off of that route into Ascendant Chicago. Maybe could potentially turn this around stun, but Chupos does have survivability. No! That was so close. It was absolutely clutch. That was so close. That Ascendant's proc at the right time, but just didn't have much survivability to follow. Big let's sweep. Chupos does have a normal trigger for this one. Holding onto the human racial until later. Got himself the AMS. Trying to see if he can go into roots back to back onto Big Fel as a Zuen joins in. Maybe can get a couple of death strikes as Zuen, but right now you can't really control Big Fel at all. Trying to see if he can go for death strikes. Got himself the rune weapon in order to give himself a bit more resources. Chain of ice onto the monk as he's able to close the gap. Quick touch of death does not let you go anywhere whatsoever. That is a rough one. With Noble 6 going to be up next as the Demonology Warlock. Last time Noble popped in, I also love the gas mask this man's got going on. With the shoulders, with the green, everything. That looks fantastic. It's going to be a big fall trying to see if he can get in there, but it has to back up. Playing it very, very defensive against all the pets. As it's going to be a Siphon together with a Tyrant. Lots of damage from the Karma. Trying to see if he can reverse the damage back to the Warlock, but the Warlock got so much damage. Big Fell may be in a lot of trouble. Literally every defensive has been blown, but it's still just in a lot of pressure. All these pets are just absolutely savaging him down. It's going to be going down to the Imps where Noble basically just had to kite and run and see if he can get himself a bit of a reset. My goodness, Vellucci is going to be up next as a survival hunter. Got himself the full death chakram? Yeah, chakram. Thrown in over at Noble. For some reason, I was going to say death mark for some reason, but then I thought to myself, that's the wrong class. Noble trying to see if he can back up out of it entirely. Does end up kind of going on top of a candle. Is going to end up porting away from Vellucci. Trying to see if he can just keep him at bay as best as possible. Where's your pet at? We'll definitely need a pet. Stun right now is Vellucci. Trying to see if he can go for some damage. Does get himself. Trying to go for a kick onto Noble 6. Was interrupted completely. Does get the free cog as well. Able to get a lot of cast and fear onto Vellucci. No help whatsoever. Noble 6, does he have any value? It's going to be Turtle Shell. Noble does have himself all the pets ramped up with the Obelisk. Harpoon. Oh! I don't even know what killed ya. I think it might have been a battle master trick and fell off as you just got what final imp maybe slamming down big damage charge by Dally as he's trying to see if he can take down Noble 6, trying to see if he can go behind towards the back of the room. Shadow Fury slamming him down. Does Noble maybe get to walk past him? Trying to see if he can avoid him. Access to follow. He's just literally walking away from the guy. Mortar Coil. What is that? He literally just walked away and the man is just trapped in a room with all of his demons, man. What is going on? Just trying to go for a bit of a charge. Big bleed onto Noble 6. Blasted through a shield. Got him some Blaze Storm. Could potentially be massive for him. Noble trying to see if he can get him some recovery, but Dally does end up taking him down at the end of the day. I love how he put him to the back of the wall. Stun. Axe Toss. Mortar Coil literally just walked by the guy. Keithon is going to be up next, trying to see if he can get himself a bit of recovery here. Does have some wings while available. Dally trying to see if he can back up out of the bubble used really early on. Dally, I don't know if you got to wait to break out of this bubble. He does have Shattering Throw, so maybe he can make a play. He might be in a lot of trouble though. Oh, and Keith does go in with a full burst wombo combo. Does not let him out of his sight whatsoever. With Infected gonna be up next. Last one left over for the team one. Able to evade the blind quite well, and with the Pally does not have bubble anymore. Does not have any more big immunities whatsoever. He does end up going down with two broken. Trying to see if he can land a sniper shot around the corner. Does end up getting a pretty big hit off the bat. Massive rapid fire. It is gonna be stunned up by Infected immediately. Trying to go for a bit of a death pact as well to give himself a little bit more health to work with. Void Differential for two broken, I think, was used. Yes, it was. It was. Wait, it's a 3-minute cooldown? Oh, big kill shot at the end. Why is Void Differential 3-minute cooldown, by the way? That seems like it's a little long, isn't it? That seems like it's a little long. But Noble 6 does end up slaying two. Almost got a third, and there Chupa slamming in. Actually, everybody got a chance to play. I think the only one that barely got to play is maybe Too Broken. Got us an opener, big kill shot, and that was really it.